the output of this code, remember we talk about couple of jump statements, break statement, continue, and the return. So these are the three jump statement. The name of jump statement means you are going from one place to another place, basically in memory references, right? So in here, what happens when you have break statement, we discuss in the basics. So in this loop, it should come out, right? When it should come out, so we have a selection here. Whenever n is greater than 5, it should come out, right? Now the question asks, what is the output of the Python code? And basically, it has print the message and print the numbers. So first of all, you have to identify whether it's printing a number or the message. So if you look at carefully in the print statement, we have the Python, this message. So that means these two are wrong. And then we left with these two. So now we have to figure it out whether it will print 1 time or 5 times. Now n is 10, right? So, and this is true, you come out, so you go inside, and then you print Python once, and then you reduce 1 from 10, that means n is 9, and you are checking whether 9 is greater than 5. That is true, so you meet the break statement, which is you come out. So the correct answer is it will print the message Python 1 time. So few things you need to remember. One thing is break statement will break and come out, and here, right, so we will get 10, and then with this we will get 9, and 9 is greater than 5. Okay, so I hope you are not going to make the same mistake in the next one, right? And then the next one, this is really interesting one, and you should remember, because this question asks how many times the following loops repeats. Now for example, what you need to remember is when you say range, and if you have a single number, that indicates the stop, right? In range function, let me get a note. Let's have a notepad just to talk about few things. Now first of all, range function, we have 3 parts: start, right, stop, and step. If you have 3 values, then it will indicate start, stop, and step. If you have only 2, then it will indicate range, start, and stop. And we should know that the step is 1, right? So if you have 2 values, then it indicates a start, and a stop, and step is default value is 1. If you have 1 value, right, it indicates stop. So what you need to know is start will be 0, right? So this should be 0, it will start with 0, and the step is 1, right? So that these are the default values. So this is only what you need to remember. So when you say range 6, right, so range 6 means, yes, so it will start with 0, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So remember, when you say 6, it will go up to 5. Similarly, if you have range 5, right, it will go from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Range 4, simply we know it will start with 0, 1, 2, 3. And finally, range 1, 5, it goes from 1, 2, 3, 4. So how many times the loop repeats? So when you say x range 6, we know 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. The first one goes 6 times, so it's not the correct answer. Second one, when you say range 5, it goes from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. That means 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. So the answer is this one, x in range 5. And this goes for 4 times, 0, 1, 2, 3. And this is 1, 2, 3. So this is 4 times, this is 4 times. Right? So it's, if I quickly discuss this in the idle. right? The same thing we can say for I in range. If you say 5, and if I say print I, basically it goes from 0 to 5, 0 to 4, which is 5 times. So that's why when you get something and if you want to print a message, let's say Python for 5 times, basically this is what you need to remember. So if you want to repeat 10 times, you say range 10. Arbitrary number n, you can say range n. So make a note of this, and it's very important. And if you want to repeat with 2 values, then it should be 1,6. Now for example, if you want to type, right, the numbers with the numbers, but let's say you want to start with 1, right, and then it should be 1,6, which will print numbers from 1 to 5, and it will repeat 5 times, right? So make a note of that, and this is the simplest. Whenever you want to repeat something, let's say 10 times, you simply say, okay, I in range 10, right? 20 times, we will say, okay, for I in range 20. That's all you need to remember. So make a note of that, and we have extensively used this idea. Right, now, so that's the second one. Third one, okay, the output of this code. So in this particular case, we have total is 0, right? Maybe I will have okay. So the code is something like this. We have the variable total is 0, and then we have a for I in range 3. So now we know when you say what is range 3. So in here we have total equals total plus I, and finally print total. Right, one thing we should know, right, we start with 0, right? So the starting value, if I put, right, the starting value, so let's say how many times I will have few details, and then let's say the I value and the total. So let's put up this one. So initially what we have in the beginning, right, in the beginning, let me put a dash, right, when you start, right, the total is 0, right, total is 0. So this is 0 when you start, right? I will put 2 dashes. So when you start, the total is 0. Now you go to loop. So it goes from for I in range 3. We know that when you say range 3, you start with 0. So that I is 0. So the first time when it runs, right, we know I is 0. So then the total is total plus 0. The total is 0, 0 plus 0, that is 0. So after the first iteration, right, we have I is 0, total is 0. Now next time you get 1. So that means the second time it goes, we know I is 1. Right? When it is 1, total is total plus I. So that this becomes 1. Right? And then it will repeat third time, and this time value is 2. Right? The value is 2. And you know that then total is 1, total 1 plus 2, this becomes 3. And that's all. Because we know that when you have 3, it goes from 0, 1, 2. So the total is 3. So the correct answer for this question is 3, because it repeats 3 times with 0, 1, 2. You add them up, so you will get 3. Right. The next question. Again, similar to previous one, we have n equals 1. While true, we say print dialog, and n equals n plus 5, 1. And if n is greater than 5, we say break. So you start with 1, you print once, so 1 time. Then this becomes 2, right? So 2 is not greater than 5. So it will print 2 times. Then becomes 3. 3 is not greater than 5. Then it print 3 times. Then this is 4. 4 isn't it greater than 5. So that means it will print 4 times, right? Now this is 5. 5 is not greater than 5. So it will print 5 times, right? Now n plus 1, this becomes 6. 6 is greater than 5. So whenever you have 6 you greater than 5, you come out, which means you have printed 5 times. So the answer is, it prints the message dialog 5 times. Right. This one, okay, I think I should get this question. So let me go to the full report and this one as well. This is yeah, 1 and 2, right? So we'll go to full report. Yes, so in this particular case, if you remember, so what happens, we have x is true, y is false, true, false, and remember operator we discussed last time works and evaluated true if one of these is true. So we know that x is true and this is false. Since x is true, this is true, which means it will print A, that's all, and that's why we get this answer. It will not execute with any other, because you come here and this is true, it will print A, that's all. The next one is this, okay, yeah, I cannot see the question, right? Maybe, yeah. So the values we had, if I remember correct, yes, it's a for loop for I in range. I think it started with 0, 20, 5, and it says print I and end with the space. So I will explain this one. Now first of all, the range function. Now you should familiar with this one. When you say 3 values, right? So you start with 0 and then increment is 5. So 0 plus 5, you will get 5, then 10, then 15, but not 20, right? Majority you have confused. 20 is the last number. You cannot have that number here because value should be less than that. So that means the values are 0, 5, 10 and 15. So let me take the idle session. So let me use idle, right? So this is what we had for I in range. We have 5 range 0 20 5, right? And then when you say print I, this is what we will get, 0 5 10. Okay, if you look at the help function for print, right, and here the end is usually new line character. That's why when we have end, you go to the next line. So what we are going to do is we are going to change this ending value with a space, right? So what happens when we say when we say end equals space, right? So it will have a space in between, right? You can have any other values. For example, let me put a comma. So then you have a comma separate values like this, right? So simply build this. You can print values horizontally, that means in the same line, if you use this one. So I do not remember whether I have discussed this idea, so that's why I showed here. Right, I think these are the problematic areas, and I hope you practice more on the content by going through the video as well as the handouts, and make sure that you are ready with the basics that we have discussed. Because coming sessions we are going to look at, for example, object orientation, and after that we are going to look at numerical Python, where we talk about how to represent data sets and so on. So for that you need these basics. Right, now having said that, let's quickly go to my the today's topic. And the things that we need to discuss is we'll write up some programs so that we can talk about this. Right, now let's look together. We'll do a small exercise. I want you to write a Python functions to calculate the area of a square, and then you write a program. You get the length of the square from the user, and then use that function to calculate this value. Right now it asks only the function, but let's write the whole program. Right, so let's start. Right, so I'm going to use a new file, and what we are supposed to do is write a function to calculate area of a square. Right, area of a square. Right, now simply we know when you have to type a function, let's say area square, and we know that to find the area of a square we need only one side of the square. So let me say this is length. Right, we take it as a length, and simply we can say to find out the square we have to multiply length by length. That's all, isn't it? This is the easiest way to think about finding area of a square. Now let's write a complete program. Now to write a complete program, you know that you have to get this value from the user. So I'm going to say that the input is L, and then int input, I'm going to say int length of square. Right, and that's L. And then we can find area as, for example, we can call the function area square, and then we can pass L. We have taken from L, so which will call my function, and then you will get the answer here. Now to print, we can use to print I'm using the asterisk, so I can say the area of a square, the square is, within curly brackets I can say area. Right, simply this will do the purpose. So let me run this. So I'm going to say file save, and then we were doing 40. Yes, this is program number 40, function square. Right, and let me run this, run module. So you see that it lasts length of the square. So let me say 50. So it will basically multiply 50 by 50. So area of a square is 2500. Right. So I hope you are comfortable with now creating functions in Python and also writing small script using these functions. If you have finished up to this point, please raise your hands so that I can move to the next part. If you have, at the same time, if you have any questions regarding what we have covered so far, you can raise those questions until others are ready. Right. Okay. Thanks there. The next one, I'm going to look at what we have done previously. That is area of a rectangle. Right. So if I take another window and then if I define that one, okay, you can lower the hands now. Thanks everyone. We can say def area rectangle. So we discussed that when you want to calculate area of a rectangle, you need two parameters. One is length and maybe height. Yeah. Let's say these are the two values, and basically you are returning length, you multiply with height. Right. So that's all. So if I save this, let me save. So this is program 15. Yes, function rect. Right. And if you run it, now we have created the function, so we can say okay, area rectangle, and when you do that, we can provide length and the height. Right. Let's say 150. So we'll get 5,000. Right. But we know if I want to use the same thing to find an area of a square, we can make use of the same thing. What do you have to do? Right. If I want to use the same function to find the area of a square using this function, what should I do then? Yes, we can provide the same values. So let's say 50-50, this is what we have used earlier. So 50 and 50. I know length and the height are the same. So which will give you the answer for the square. So which means now if you want to, let's say, define area square, yes, and we say length is the input parameter, simply without calculating, using that the formula, you can use whatever you have already developed. That means area rectangle. So the one thing is you are going to reduce the code, and code is sometimes manageable, right? If you want to change something, easily you can change, right? If you're not, if you're building on top of the others, right? Now, for example, in this particular case, simply you can say length and length, right? So if I run this, now I have created two functions, but this time when you call area square, and if I put 50, right, internally what will happen when you say area square 50, so you are passing 50 and 50 to the area rectangle, and you are passing it here, and then you will get the answer back into this function. So you are going from this function to this, right? So we can call functions within the function. So that's the idea that I want to discuss it here, and I hope this is a very toy problem where we use to, instead of writing down the formula to find out the area square, we have make use of what is existing, that is using area rectangle. Right. So if you understood up to this point, you can raise your hand so we can move to the next one. Okay, how about Nuan? So I hope everyone is comfortable with what I have done so far. Right, so we'll move to the next one then. Right, okay, so functions, what I want to talk about here is you can make use of already existing function, which is what we are going to learn next. Right, once we learn the modules today, that's exactly what we are going to do. Right, okay, let's quickly do these two functions. First one, I want to get a person's name. Let's say hello Sampath. Now if you provide the person's names as Sampath, so what I want you to do is, it's a simple one, so if you want you can use a shell. So let me use a shell, something like this. If I say greeting, if I put Sampath, it should tell me hello Sampath. Right now there's no function called Sampath here, or function called greeting, so that's why we are getting an error. Right, so I want you to try that. If you are finished, you can raise your hands. Okay, so what we need to do is, you can say def greeting, and you have to get a name of a person, right? So we can say return, okay, what was the answer? So that's the question. So if you are providing a name of a function and then you want to say hello that person's name, right? Hello and person's name. Right? So simply it's a string concatenation, isn't it? So that means you get hello and you get the name, you concatenate. Yes. If you got the correct answer, you can raise your hands. So we can say, let's say hello plus the name, isn't it? That's what. We are basically adding hello part to the name. So let's see now. So if I say greeting, right, I'm going to say okay, let's say Sampath. Yes, it says hello Sampath as a message. Similarly, let's say Yamuna, it says hello Yamuna. Whoever you use this function, it adds to hello. Right, that's the first exercise. Second one, okay, so you have given temperature conversion function. In this one, I want you to get the temperature value in degrees Fahrenheit and to convert it to degrees Celsius. Formula is given here. To get Fahrenheit to Celsius, we have to multiply, we have to have 5 times f minus 32 divided by 9. So this is what you have to do. Yes, write a small function for this. It's again a single line. So for example, you can say def, right, let's say you are converting Fahrenheit to Celsius, right, and we are getting the value in Fahrenheit. So let me put in this form. If that is the way, so you have to now simply say how to convert Fahrenheit into Celsius. So expression is given, which means you can simply put this into Python. That's all you need to do. Right, those who have finished the second part, the temperature conversion, can you please raise your hands? And if you are getting an error when you work it out, please copy and put it into the chat so that I can attend to it. Yes, we have Manake, Chintaka, Sahan, they have done it. Yes. So simply we have to return 5 times 5 into what? We have to have brackets F minus (32) divide by 9. That's all, right? So if you want to call it, let's say Fahrenheit to Celsius, let me use 32, which will give 0 to us. Right. Okay, you can lower the hands. Thanks. Right. So with this one, we have kind of finished discussing how to use functions in Python. Right. But to complete this functions part, we have to learn one more thing, the idea of local and global variables, especially when you work with functions. Right. Without typing the code, can you guess what might be the output of these 3 statements? We have a print A, we have a change A, we have print A again. Can you guess what is the output of these 3? Yes? Baban, what do you think?
Yeah, first one outputs 0.
Yeah.
8, 0. Second one outputs 1. Last one, same as first one.
Okay, that was the question. Anyway,
What is it?
So you have 0 and 1, right? You answer. Is it Baman?
Oh, yeah, last one is also 1.
Okay, right, good. How about Asanka?
No, the last one is also 0.
Last one is also 0, okay. How about Adisha? It's okay, we are here to make mistakes and then understand. So you don't have to really worry about this.
Yes, the first one is 0, the second one is 1, and last one is 0. I think I'm the same side with Bangma. Yeah.
Okay. How about Nuan?
I think is first one is 0, second one is 1, and third one again I think it's 1.
Okay. How about Tirasi? Sahan? Yes, Tirasi.
It's 0, 0, 1 and 0.
Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
0, 1, and 0.
Okay. Yeah. So let's look at what will happen. Okay. Forget about this. Just type this code and see what is the output. Then let's have the discussion. Just type this code and run and observe the answer. So let me take new window. Right. So we know we have a equals 0. We have def change a. We have a function call and no parameters, right? We have not seen this, so there's no parameter, but inside we have a is equal to 1. And you come outside, right? Then you have 3 statements, print a, then you call the function, change a, and then you print again. Yes. Just run and observe the answer. Sorry. I have to file save. This is, in my case, I have program 16. Yes, local. Those who have finished, can you share what is the answer? The correct answer?
0, 0.
Yes. If you have done this correctly, let me run module. Okay, I made a mistake. Change n is missing in my code. So let me run again. It says 0, 0, which we have not expected this, right? Some of you at least. If you are new to programming, so this is usually the case. You might think that we are getting 0 and the reason is here we have A0, here we have A1. So the first one will put 0 anyway. So there's no confusion here. But when you call the function, you are going to say A1 and you think that A1 will change the value here. Okay, the answer is no. Why? When you create variables within a function, it will not visible to outside. When you create variables inside the function, it will not visible to the outside. So this A and this A inside A are two different things, right? So usually we say this is local to the function. So this is called local variable. This A is a local variable. So that's why, so there's no effect for this A. So that's why when you call the function, right, you are getting 0, 0. You are getting 0, 0. I will get the code again. Yes. This is local. Right. So remember, this is called scope of variable, the visibility of the variable. Right. And when we say local variables, all the variables that we create inside the function are local. That means it is within its visibility is within the functions, not outside. So usually we say scope is limited to the function. So these variables that you have created inside the function, you cannot use in outside. So that's the reason why when we call the function, right? When we call the function, we are not getting, when you call the functions, no change of this variable to this. Right. Now there's a way that we can do the same thing. Now let's say we want to do this change. Right. So I'm going to resave this one. I'm going to say it's global. Now if you want to make it happen, that means if you want to change A's values, Now we have to make this local variable to a global variable so that the effect will affect the what is outside. So we have in Python there's a global command, and then you can say global A. Now this time when you say global A, what happens? We indicate that this A is visible to the outside. When you say global A means this A is not only within the function, it is visible to the outside as well. So now if you call it and if you run it, right, now this time you will see 0 and 1. So what happens when you say print A, initially A is 0, so you will get 0. Then you say change A, so then we will say this is outside, that means these two A's will be the same. So when you say A, you start with A0 and then you are going to say it's A1, which means after this statement the A's value is 1 and you print 1. Right. Any questions, please?
Doctor, if we define global A within the function, is
Yeah.
it referring the outside A or define a new variable called A?
You can check this by using ID. I don't know whether I have I told you about the ID attribute? Sorry, ID function? Initially, did I discuss? Okay, now let me no. Okay, so let me say like this. Let me say A equals 10. This is general, and we are going to say B equals A. So what happened in Python when you say the assignment, when you say A equals 10, it will create the space to hold this value in the memory reference. So you can usually get this by using a function called ID. So if you look at ID A, it will give you a memory reference for this variable A. Right, now when you say BA, it will not really create a new place in the memory to reference. It's basically it refers to the same place, which means if you use IDB, right, it will be the same thing. Got the point? First of all, you need to be clear about this one. If it is not clear, please let me know. So let me draw, like let's say this is the memory. So in the memory, okay, I'm going to have this memory. And when you say A equals 10, what will happen? In the memory, it will allocate the space to hold this value. And then we will indicate that this is A. Right? And we will put 10 for this. Now when you say B is also equal to say, so that means we simply say that we will refer the same object in the memory. So that's why when we say IDA, right, when we say IDA, right, we are getting a memory reference. Same memory reference we can see it here as well. Are you all clear about this idea?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now let me talk about this local and global one, right? So I'm getting my previous code as well. So I'm going to open local file as well. So let me put memory references as well, right? So that we can see what happens here. Now I'm going to see memory reference for A. So how do you do? We can say print IDA. Now from here we will put. Here we will see after this one I'm going to reference print IDA. So if I run it, hopefully I'm getting memory reference for this A. Run module. Yes. So this 0 and this is a memory reference for this variable. And the next one is we will have this, and within that I'm going to have print id A. So that actually indicate this A. Okay. So let me run both, run module. Hopefully we are getting two different values, isn't it? See, here we are getting two different values, which indicates this memory reference, this A, and the A outside of this, they are totally different. You got my point? Or is it confusing now? What I'm going to say is, when although we say A equals 0, what happens in the memory, you allocate a place to store 0 and you give a label, and that value is this for the first one, and second you are going to say A equals 1, again you got a memory, and for that you will place A and store 1 there, and it's a different place. So these two A's actually are stored in two different places in the memory. Now let me go to global. Now when I get the global one, now once you say this, right, hopefully when we say global A, I think I should not confuse you. So print, let's say id A, and when you say global A, and if I say print id A, hopefully it will match. And then after this one, once you come out, I will have print id A, right? I will explain why I did that. So let me run. I'm going to say run module. Okay, right? Now you see that initially when you say A equals 0, right? And when you say print id A, right, A equals 0 and print id A, my original memory reference for the previous one, right, 0 is allocated here. Now the next time when you say change A, when you call it, you are going to say it's a global A. That means this A is visible to the outside. Now when you say visible to the outside, you create a variable and you store 1, you get the memory reference, and then you are going to indicate that the same memory reference for this one as well, right? So which means when you say print A, right, after this one, it will refer the value of A here. So that means this reference. So that's why. So initially we have a memory reference for this, what is outside, and this is the inside one. But when I go back again the outside will be referenced what is inside, right? So which indicates, it will indicate the same value. So that is what we will call global and local. So usually if you do not specify global keyword in the Python functions, and then what will happen, it will not visible to the outside. But when you put a keyword global A, then after the global A, then the variable A that we have defined within the function will be visible to the outside. So whenever we want to make a change with the outside, so you have to use global within the function. So if you want to know these details of this exact same thing actually described in the book that I have prescribed in the very beginning, Think Like a Computer Science, you can read about this, right? So it talks about from the beginning to the functions part, where how within the memory, Python manipulate these values. For example, the first one that we have discussed, and also like how we use global. Did I give you some light to understand what is happening? Or, I don't know whether I have confused you more. Okay,
Good.
yeah. Just think about it, and you can play around. Since I have introduced the ID, you can read about the ID functions in Python as well. So we can actually discuss back again next week maybe. Again we can go through the same and try to understand what exactly happened here. Right. So basically if I summarize what happens here with the global keyword A, this A will be outside, visible to the outside as well. Right. So earlier we have a different memory reference. But once we say this is global A, once you actually change the value for A, that reference is available outside for A. Right? So that's why in the second time once we say print ID A, that ID A actually refer the value we specified within the function. Okay, so that's about the local variables, and the functions or parameters that we actually define within a function, they cannot be used in outside the function, which means it is not visible to the outside. That's why we call them as local variables. To access the variable outside, then variable should be declared as global. So that's exactly what we did in the previous one.
So any variable which is defined outside of functions are naturally global variables, right?
Yeah, they are global. Yeah, definitely. Now, if you put A, this one is actually global variable, meaning like it's accessible. But in this one, it's not accessible. Right? This one is not accessible. So that's why I said, whatever we define within the function, if you want to visible to the outside, then we have to make it as a global. So that's what you need to note about. Okay, right. So anyway, good that you asked these questions, because these are the places that you need to really understand how, how we actually manipulate the memory as well as the variables. Right. Now, next one, I'm going to start with the file handling. This is, I'm going to simply talk about like how to handle text files, and then later I will discuss how we can even like get data from comma separate value CSV files or Excel files even. But in this lesson, actually, we are going to create some text files. Right. Now let's start. Now file handling, basically we use if you want to permanently store something. Right now the variables that we have created, they'll be temporary, and let's say every time when you run the program, it will use the memory to save the data, and it will be temporary. But if you want to make it permanent, definitely we have to go for physical files. Now, couple of methods that you should learn when you work with the files is, we have to create first of all what we call the file handler. I will explain that. And for that, first of all, we have to use open method where we have to specify which mode we are going to use for. Now, for example, if you want to open a file for reading, that means you have an already existing file. If you want to read the content, so we have to open the file for reading. We use R for that. And you can open a new file for our writing, right? So that means we can use W to indicate that it's for writing. And if you want to change something in already existing file, then we call appending OA. So we have to first specify when you have to open, you can have a file name and you have to specify the mode. So the three modes are reading, writing and appending. And remember that these files, once you open, you have to make sure that once you finish the work, you have to close it out. If you forget this part, you know what might happen, file might get corrupted. Right? So make sure that once you open, you properly close the file handler. Then the other methods. Now in these methods, read lines, read line and read. These three methods are used to read the contents. So for example, read lines, you read all the lines. When you say read line, we have read one line at a time. Or if you say read, it will read a whole file. Right? So depend on the situation, we can make use of one of these. And the next one is when you want to write something into a file, you use write whatever the things that you will put inside the parameter. Right? So now I hope you got some idea about what methods to be used. Right? Now let's see how to write a function. Right? So let me take my folder first. I will start with my folder because the idea there is I want to show that okay, right now we don't have any functions, files. And then what we are going to do, we are going to create a file. Right? So right now this is my folder. Right? And if you look at what is inside the folder, we don't have text file. We don't have any text file here, right? Now we are going to create. Now for that I will use idle, right? And I will open a new window. Right, now this side you have the file, so this side I am going to write the function. Now there are three things I am going to do here. The first one, I am going to open a file for writing. I am going to create a new file. Then the second step, what I am going to do, I am going to write content. Third one, what I am going to do, I am going to close the file. Remember, this is very important, right? Otherwise, your files may get corrupted. Now for that we will use what we call the file handler. We call file and we use open method. And in open method, first of all, you have to provide a name for the file. So I'm going to use a text file. We will say test.txt, extend txt for the text file. And the mode is for write. So this is how you specify the write mode. Okay. What happens? Sorry, I have to say test.text for W. Right. Now the next one, the close the file. So once you finish, you have to say file.close. So this is what I referred as closing the file. The next thing is you can write the contents. Now when you write the contents, so you can always call file.write. Whatever you want to write, you can put it inside. Now for example, I can say, okay, Department of Computer Engineering. Right? So this is a line. And then let's say, don't take down, I will give you time. Let's say University of Peradeniya. Right. So let me run and show you what will happen. And this is not the final one, so wait. So I'm going to save this. File save. So I will get my folder. So then now my program is program 18, right? Files, okay. And then you see I'm going to run this and just observe here that it will create a new file. So I'm going to say run module. Once I created this one, you see now it will create a new file test. We'll go inside and see what is inside, right? So we have Department of Computer Engineering, University of Peradeniya. So remember that we have had two lines, but they are in the same line. Okay, now this is the first thing that we have to learn when you work with the files. That is, now when you have the write method, at the end we have to say that okay, go to the next line. Otherwise the write method will not go to the next line, it will actually stop at the same place. So that's why the University of Peradeniya also put into the same line. So adding a new line usually with /n. I hope you have seen this in the print function as well. So this indicates the new line character, which means this will add, or this will indicate that okay, it will go to the new line. Similarly, you better use here as well. So what you need to remember is whenever you write something at the end, you can have this new line character. So as a practice. So now I think we are complete and we can run. So I can run this. Now this time, if you open it up, you can see, right, it's nicely written inside the file, right? So that is actually writing a file. Okay, good. Let's try to do this, run and open the file and observe. If you finish up to this point, please raise your hands. Thank you.
Can we specify the path of the file that should be created?
Yes, you can.
Doctor, I think you all know.
Okay, wait. Yes, can you hear me now? Right.
Yeah.
Now, question is about the path, right? I didn't mention this in the beginning because if you want to manage path in all different operating systems, then we have to use other libraries, right? Now for example, now if I assume that everyone is having Windows computers, do you have Windows computers? Anyone is having Mac or Linux?
At dialog they give only Windows address.
Okay. Right. Okay. So the pass is simple. Now here, let me say, now in this particular case, I actually assume that I'm going to create the file where my original Python file located. So that's why I didn't specify any path here. But if you want to have it within the folder, then you can start from C. Now let me take an example. Let's say I want to put it to the desktop, and you know that in C we have to specify where we are going to keep the file. So in my case it's users, and I'm going to get some path, and then let's say the desktop, right? So I have to specify everything. So like this C users sampath desktop, in case if I want to create the file here. So hopefully if I type like this, that means Windows format, right? So in Windows format, so I can say C, right? And this is to say that in the C we will create this, and then with that I can see the users, right? So users slash, and then we will say my username, right? Hope I have done it correctly. So let me check my path. Yes, and then desktop, right? So then I can say desktop and then slash, right? So we will put it like this total path starting from C in Windows. Now if I do this thing, so let me go to my desktop. I hope I'm in desktop, right? Yes, I hope I'm in the desktop, and then let me run module. I save. Okay. The error is we have okay, so maybe I will put double quotes for this, so that let me see whether I can. Otherwise I have to separate path and the file.
Doctor, I think last slash should be a forward slash.
Now forward slash anyway it will support, because now it's something like this. Now for example, other operating system it goes with the forward slash, but when it comes to Windows operating systems we have backslashes. Let me check. Okay, so I got the point. So the error comes with this slash here. I have to use double slashes, right? Okay, so we have to put double slashes because the character, yeah, should work right now. Let me run module. Yes. Okay, I hope you got the point. So forward slashes work because forward slashes are used in other operating system. That's why I said so in Windows we have to have backslash. So right now if I go to my desktop, I should now see the file. Hopefully we have a test file. Yes, we have, right? So this is how the path will be created. But I will talk about this later on. Now for this, right, there are a couple of things we can handle. We can use operators. There's a Python OS library, OS module, where you can get the help of operating system to handle this path. And or else right now we have a what we call the path lib, right? After Python 3.4, right, we have path lib which we can actually use the paths. So otherwise these confusions are there. For example, if I try to run this code in other operating system, it will create a problem, right? Which might be because when you run it, let's say you are designing a program, so make sure that your program will run in any programming language, any operating system. So then putting file names like this might create a problem, right? Keep this in mind, but this is useful assuming that everyone is using Windows laptops, right? This may works. Anyway, good question. Right, now shall we move to the next one then? I hope those who want to try, you can try changing according to your folder structure. Try and let me know. But I am going to simply remove this path one because path creates issues. So I will remove that for the time being. And I'm going to assume that this file is created with where I have actually saved my file. So I'm going to say run module, and which means right. Okay, so let me go to the folder. So in the desktop we have right. So this is the file. Okay. Now let me explain appending. Appending means now we already create a file called test, and I'm going to change something here. So in this particular case, what I'm going to do next, right? So right now we created for the writing. Now let's append this file. Append means assume that we have already have a file, and then we are going to add something to existing a file. So let me use a new file. I'm going to use file, new file. අතන උඩ බටන් එක ඔබන්න ඕකේ. මෙතන බටන් එක මෙතන අර කි උඩ. ඔබ හොඳට ඔබ. ඉතින් පවර් කේබල් එක ගහලා තියෙන්නේ ස්විච් ඔන්. ඔබ. බල්බ් එකේ ලයිට් පත් වෙනවා. එහෙනම් වැඩ කරන්න. Okay, right. Now let's write the same thing. Now this time I'm going to open a existing file, or open a file for appending, right? If the file is not there, it will create a new file. Otherwise, basically you assume that you have already, so in this case open a file for appending. You can write with me. So file, we can say open test.txt for appending. So this time file mode is set to A. Right. And finally you need to close the file. File close. Right. The next one is I'm going to add new lines. So what are the new lines? So I'm going to write the contents. So we can say file dot write. I can say Peradeniya. Right. So we can say postal code, and I will put slash it. File dot write. We have Peradeniya. Sorry. Let me say Sri Lanka. Right. Now I had 2 lines. Let me start here. Now here is my already existing test file. Now I have 2 lines. Let me run this, run module. I have to first of all save it. So when I run once, and if you open the file, now you can see I have 4 lines of code. Right, now this is the second file, appending. So I put this. Right, so if you open up, this is what I have. So we have, this is W, meaning the new one, this is appending. Right, finished? Can you raise your hands? You also have finished up to this point? Okay, good. Now, small question. Now, if I rerun this one, again if I run it, what will happen? Any guesses?
Keep adding these 2 lines.
Keep 2 more lines.
It will add 2 lines to the same file.
Yes. So if I run it again, if you open, yes, it will add 2 more, right? Because you are appending. What if I run this file again? Any guesses?
Only the first 2 lines.
Exactly.
A new file.
Yeah, remember this. So if you run this file again, what will happen? It always create a new file. So that means if you already have content, it will overwrite. So you have to be very careful, right? File handling, very careful, because if you make a mistake, so you might overwrite existing content, right? So make a note of this. So the appending will add it, no issue, right? The safest way is use appending. If you do not have a file, append will create a file for you, right? So let me delete this file. I'm going to delete this file. So there's no file. But if you run module, right, and you will see it will create a file for me. So that means appending is more safer than writing, because if you make a mistake, let's say if you use the same name as the existing file, this will, without any warning, it will overwrite the file. Okay, that's good. So let's move to the last part. which means I want to read the file. So in this case, I'm going to read the file, that means the content, this content. So let me start with that one. Okay, so we have done up to this point. Let's look at the reading. Now the reading, there are many ways that you can do. I will start first of all reading line by line, right? And I will explain how you may read a file. Yes, let me open up a new file, and this time I am going to open the file for reading. Right? So how do you start? You will have a file handler. I am using open method. With the file name, I am going to say test.txt, and with the R to say that it's a read mode, and then you will close the file. Right? So simply we can say file close. Right, now reading could be done in many ways. So in this case, I am going to explain reading the file line by line. Right? So here is how you are going to do is, you are going to use for loop. Remember I told you, for loop can be used to use iterative objects. So in this case, we are going to use this, meaning we will write like this. The meaning of this is, so we will say it will read line by line. So we say for line in a file, which means you take one line at a time, right? So with that we are going to say print. I'm going to say print print line, because we are going to get line. So we will go line by line. So this is not the final answer, but let's say. So I'm going to say run module. And then this is program 20, read file. Now when you read it, you will get like this. Now if you are wondering why we are getting this, let me explain. Now remember, when we write files, we have a new line character, that means slash, and we have added. And if you look at the help file in print, right? So print also at the end and a new line character. So that's why the reason in our original file, right? In our original file, we have a address like this. In every line we have the address, whereas when you read it, we have every other, meaning like you have a line, then you space, and another line, and another space, and so on. So this is because we have added the new line character when you are creating the file. So in print function also add new line characters at the end. So because of this reason, when you are printing, you are going to say, okay, n should be empty. So we will specify that n should be empty. Put it like this. So once you do this, and if you run module, so this time it perfectly gives what is inside the content of the file, which means in each line we have the address. Okay, you can take down this, and then if you are finished, you can raise your hands.